Mature content.
Listener discretion is advised.
Peace and blessings, fellow journeying tarot nerds. Welcome and thanks for tuning in to the TV and Tarot Talk podcast, where we chill, chat, and tarot. I am your host, Naya Thryce.
And I'm Meg Watson.
The aim of this podcast is to explore tarot in a chill, casual, and fun way through the lens of TV and pop culture. TV and Tarot Talk podcast is meant to be a safe place to explore concepts, as stories and shows can serve as a shared experience to build an understanding from. For this set of The Walking Dead episodes, we will only be covering the 22 major arcana cards and a few bonus episodes sprinkled in before deep diving into another TV series. This is a rewatch spanning the whole of the AMC's The Walking Dead universe, so beware because spoilers are ahead.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
Warning.
Spoiler. And now for your hosts.
This is episode 7, and in today's episode, we will be exploring the Chariot card. Hi, Meg.
Hi, Naya.
All right. So, do you have like an ideal amount of like tarot decks that you want to have?
Ooh. Not an exact number.
Yeah.
It's more about a deck by deck basis. And like I prefer to have decks that I use.
Yeah.
But I definitely have some that are like, this is just pretty, or this is more of a like study thing.
Yeah, see, I kind of have mine's kind of siloed out like that too. Like, I was trying to do the math, like, in terms of just dailies, right? I typically use one deck per month, so that's 12 decks. So let's say I had 12 decks. I wouldn't get back to circle back to that first deck for 12 months. That's a long time to not touch a deck. Now, of course, I use decks for other purposes besides dailies. But it was just like trying to figure out in a weird mathematical way, like, how can I, like, do you ever like, have certain decks where it's just like, man, I just want to use this deck because I haven't used it in a while?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, so I think ideally I'd like to have like my, like, I guess, working collection, like the ones that I kind of cycle through for dailies and for readings for other people. I think 12 sounds like a pretty number, but if I could get it to be at like 20, I think I would feel good about that. And that's just working stuff, because I do have specifically like a collection of like Rider-Waite's that are like different versions from over time, and I don't really use them, but they're good for referencing and comparisons and stuff. And then, like you said, and then there's the pretty artworky ones where it's like, I have a museum in a box. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Anyways, so there. See, that's a good little rambly. All right. So one thing that we have not mentioned to folks, or have we reminded them? I don't even know. But you know what I love? When people share the love and subscribe and give us feedback.
Yeah, we have not gotten any feedback.
No. We got a couple of ratings on Apple Podcasts, like 3 of them. But we haven't actually had reviews on there, so it would be great to let us know what we're doing right or where there might be some room for improvement, because we
want to hear from you.
We are on a journey. Yeah, absolutely. And for the other kind of feedback that we want, where we would like the community to be, you guys listeners to be, if you want to be more involved in the conversation, we now have a send voicemail button on tarotnerds.com. It's right in the menu, where you can send up to a 90-second voice message.
That's awesome.
Yeah, isn't that exciting? So I can't wait to, start getting that kind of feedback where we can add it to part of the program. That's going to be pretty great. And then also with that, you don't have to download anything. There's no special equipment needed. If you have if you have a smartphone, you could just click it and it'll just use your microphone, and it gives you a chance to re-listen to it to make sure, it sounds okay before you send it. So it's actually pretty cool. All right. Other than that, we can jump right in.
Yeah.
All right. Keywords.
We have victory, ambition, success, overcoming obstacles, self-discipline, willpower, control of opposing forces, movement, travel, leadership, a developed ego, confidence and direction, ego mask or persona, self-knowledge, know thyself, prestige, honor, achievement, clear purpose, travel, forward progression, conquest, pursuit of initiative. And then, of course, for the maxims of magic, we have to dare.
Yes. And then in the reverse position, it would be like lack of control and lack of direction, notoriety and recklessness, Machiavellian tendencies, and also escapism.
Also over control.
Over control.
Yeah. So like lack of control and direction, but also like controlling the outer because you can't control the inner.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, I get it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then as a person, like a traveler, like driver, pilot, runners, walkers, messengers, victors. I think you can even do military personnel here as well. As objects, any transportation vehicle, because even these boots were made for walking. And the astrological attribution is the zodiac sign of Cancer, and the element is water. Okay, Meg, it's time to get into the points. Talk about the show.
Well, going like chronologically, the first one has to be Dale with the RV.
Okay.
The RV is sort of the centerpiece of the campsite. It's kind of a rallying energy. Everybody kind of builds the camp is kind of built around the RV. So it's this hub kind of for their community.
Yeah.
Dale also has that understanding of the relationship between thought and feeling. His actions are based on weighing facts and emotions and like considering the sides. But he's also, very sure of himself on a moral, ethical level. When he does veer too far in one direction, like making Andrea's decision for her, re whether or not to kill herself, he course corrects. He owns his mistake and is like,
yeah,
that was not my decision to make.
Yeah.
Right? Give responsibility of your life back to you.
Oh, the world we know is gone. But keeping our humanity? That's a choice.
And he's appealing to people's better judgment and asking them to, do that balancing of facts and emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you making this decision because you're scared, or are you making it because you've thought it through?
Right. Yeah. I didn't even consider Dale with this card. No, it's good. It's good. It makes a lot of sense because you're right. He does. He vocalizes.
Hanging on to. Yeah. Yeah. He's hanging on to the two sphinxes, as it were.
Yeah.
Of thought and emotion and steering them down the path that he wants the group to go down.
Yeah.
Which is that, maintaining humanity and integrity and moral fortitude.
That's so good. I don't know if I have anything to It's funny because in the context of a reading the Chariot card, I can read it, but theming it out proved challenging for me a little bit, because I'm like, in what, there's almost like, and it is because there is the opposing forces that come through for that card, and I think that's what I was struggling with too. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, it took me into the last maybe like few episodes to really get some serious notes for this card.
Yeah. Like
That's one I had to sit with.
Yeah, same. Like I had Maggie in the context of in relation to the Chariot card, and in the context of her weighing her values versus her needs when trying to decide what to do with the prisoners of war from the Saviors. And I just came on the episode where they're sitting in the car, and Simon kills one of her guys, and she responds by killing one of theirs and sending it back to Negan and them in the box. But within that particular episode, I think you can really see her struggle, because she's not sure if the Alexandrians and people from the kingdom are alive or not. So it's like in her mind, all this weight just got put on her to like be the leader, to keep driving forward, to continue fighting, fighting and leading this resistance effort against the Saviors. But it's just those values and the needs. Like, how is she, the struggle that she's going through, I feel is very evocative of the Chariot energies within like those couple of episodes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's in the middle of a war, so it's about, becoming victorious, steering in that direction.
Yeah.
I think.
And I mean, where she's at with Hilltop, or where Hilltop is at, it's like finding that middle ground between the Savior's complete control and Gregory's complete lack of control.
Oh, that's good.
Like, there's got to be a middle ground, and Maggie's determined to find it. Exactly. And for context, for those of you guys listening, it's like season 8, around like episode 14, 15, 16, somewhere around there, where you kind of can feel that weight of like that chariotness and Maggie's kind of situation and stuff. Yeah, because it was go ahead. There's a couple of scenes where she's, getting really emotional about what's going on, and kind of like sets that aside because there's work to be done. Like, Daryl sees her crying at one point, and then she doesn't realize that he sees it, and she kind of, takes a deep breath, wipes her eyes, and goes back inside to like take care of business.
Right.
And there are a few moments like that where you see her kind of acknowledge that she's having these feelings, and then say, okay, but I need to be in control of them. They can't be in control of me. There's work to be done.
Yeah. Like when she kills that prisoner of war to send him back in the box, right? When she walks away from that, and she's walking back towards the house, she starts crying. Like in the middle of that, it's just like you can tell
it was not an easy choice.
The struggle was real. Yeah. Really good ebb and flow of just balancing the emotions versus things you got to do and values and just all the things. I mean, that's really all I have for Maggie in context of the Chariot.
Well, then to juxtapose that, Pamela as reversed Chariot, same kind of idea of like, how do you focus your intentions and your feelings and your thoughts towards a goal? And Pamela has that more, I can't control my own stuff, so I'll control my outer world.
Mm-hmm.
Like when she loses it, she loses it. She's just, when she realizes that she shot Judith.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, oh God, I have absolutely no control over any of this. And it's like, no, you don't, because you can't control the situation if you can't control yourself.
Right. Yeah, because I'm just like looking at the Chariot card, and I'm thinking about the Commonwealth as this fortified like city,
Yeah.
And then you have Pamela, like you said, like over controlling the situation. Mm-hmm. But then you have Hornsby, who's kind of out there with the storm.
Yeah, it's almost like Hornsby and Mercer are like the Sphinxes.
Ooh.
Like she's trying to control these two very opposing forces.
Yeah. And
but she's not really trying to control them. She needs to, turn inward, work on herself.
Well, right. And in the context of like those Sphinxes are in control of different sections of like the armed forces, if you will, of the Commonwealth, right? And
they're trying to go in very different directions.
Correct. Yeah. I don't know. And it's funny because I think Commonwealth is besides the prison, was really like the only like fortified like city.
Yeah. I mean, Woodbury a little bit, but it was much, much smaller scale.
Well, yeah. Well, no, the prison wasn't even all that fortified because the back half of it was there were still zombies coming in the catacombs. It was all blown out. Yeah. So it wasn't actually fortified up to that point. All right, now I'm digressing slightly because now I'm trying to think about fortification and stuff. Alexandria always seems like it's not fortified either. It's walled in, but it's not fortified, And then I also have for the themes of like victory and purpose. So when Team Rick wins the all-out war, they have like immediate implementation plan for what the new world of society should look like. And Rick really like, after all that shit talking that he was doing to Negan, he's like, I'm gonna kill you, and I don't know when, I don't know how, but one day I will. He decides not to kill him, letting his mercy overcome his wrath. And so I was kind of thinking of his mercy and his wrath almost as the opposing sphinxes. And then I was like, and I'm not sure if he didn't kill him more for mercy or for more to establish like a quasi-political power dynamic.
I mean, ultimately, I think it really came down to doing it for Carl. Like, that was pretty much Carl's dying wish.
Sure, but there's also that it's kind of like when Carl was younger and Rick decided not to kill the governor. It was like he did that, and then he took the people in to show Carl the way, and Carl had to like remind him of that lesson. Yeah. During his dying wish. So it's like, because by this point, Rick has gone through such a character change, that is interesting to just like stop for a minute to just remember that like he was once officer friendly, where he mostly just tried to save people by de-escalating the situation, as opposed to him now being like a survival and war-hardened person. Which is like the Chariot.
When they come across Sadiq and he's like, oh, I hope he's okay. And Carl's like, no, you got to do something.
Right. And so I was just thinking about Rick in that context of being, having the armor on and driving driving this whole, like all these plans with Dwight and the war and all this kinds of stuff. But he's hard. And so he has like the armor on and he's still driving forward this particular plan that he has. But then at the last minute, he had to decide which which thing he was going to commit to, and ultimately he committed to this, that original lesson that he taught Carl, that Carl had to reteach him.
And that keeps coming up over and over and over. Because, that was Dale's final thing. And after Dale dies, Rick says, to honor him, that's how we're going to live. To try to be better people and to hang on to our humanity. And they keep forgetting it and remembering it and forgetting it and remembering it. And
yeah.
That's the struggle. That's the journey.
Yeah. I agree. For the show itself, that's the biggest opposing forces that every character struggles with really, really hard at different points in time.
And they each have to find their own reasons. It has to be a personal decision based on what they individually have been through. You can understand the higher purpose of be a decent person, but
yeah,
until you're in a situation where it's actually being a decent person is better for me. It's the better decision for me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, how about Abraham? He keeps coming in in some large vehicle, just crashing through.
Yeah.
The dude starts off on a mission, and then when he finds out that Eugene does not, in fact, have any knowledge about what's going on or how to fix it,
I am not a
he kind of
scientist.
loses it. His mission is just, wait, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And then it takes deciding to embrace life and to, his relationship with Sasha.
Mm-hmm.
So you get that, making the decision in the lover's card puts you on a path and gives you a sense of direction for the chariot.
Yeah.
Abraham's relationship with Eugene, I think of Abraham as coming from a place of intuition, and Eugene is coming from a place of knowledge. So it's chariot intuition, magician knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that Abraham is so kind of single focused on, he has his, like you said, he has his, almost like he gave himself his orders, and these orders need to be carried out, and
but he has to have a purpose.
But there's always something happening that distracts from that, and it has a lot to do with again, the humanity of others. Are you just going to leave these people to die when you can actually help them, even though you have to stop for a minute to still get to your destination, And it takes him a minute, though, because back when they're in the church, Abraham wants to go back, get back on his mission, take the bus and all this stuff. And he wants to take Glenn with him. Then Glenn is stuck in a situation of, do I stay with Rick and everybody, or do I go with Abraham? And it's well, if you think that you're on a mission to save the whole of humanity from this crazy ass virus, you would want to go, but then you just finished going through some craziness, and you don't want to leave your people who were just out here struggling. We were all just out here struggling. But yeah, then Glenn has to weigh between the Sphinx of Abraham and the Sphinx of Rick, That was that interesting. Speaking of Glenn, I think I originally had Glenn pegged as a Chariot card.
Oh, I can see that.
Because he was a pizza delivery boy before the apocalypse, and a lot of the plot development kind of early on, is it really the plot development? What it is that Glenn is kind of the runner, he gets kidnapped by the Vatos. And so then that becomes a whole episode, because he's end up willingly or unwillingly, he traveled somewhere, and then the group had to, go and try to save him. And then he goes to this. He does store runs for Lori when they're on the farm. They send him down the well, and these are all like high tension.
The sports car.
Oh yeah, we love the sports car. Yo, he loves that thing. Yeah. He goes on a run. He gets kidnapped by Merle. He wakes up from the prison, gets kidnapped by Abraham. Why was Glenn getting kidnapped so much?
All the damn time. Probably because he was the one out there doing the runs.
But that's what I mean. Yeah. And that always just drove the story forward, introducing different
characters.
Yep.
Places.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. And then not only that, but then that, so that moving, that traveling aspect. And then he was always, I guess, like on the intuition side of things. He's very like a heart-centered kind of character. So I always...
he and Dale were very much on the same page about a lot of the moral stuff early on.
Yeah. That's really all I have for Glenn.
And he talks a lot of people down from stuff. When he talks Daryl down after Denise dies. He talks Rick down several times. Just kind of like, okay, but let's I know you're upset right now. Let's just balance that with some logic about what's going on.
Yeah.
He's very even-keeled.
Yeah, and he's able to connect with people when they're when they're leaning too far to one side or the other, and bringing them back to center a little bit. Yeah, for sure.
A couple of little concept bits. The scene where we have Michonne and Rick with the steel cable between the cars taking down the herd of walkers.
Yes.
Like,
I
driving in perfect unison.
I love that. Yeah, that was great. Yep.
And then the reverse of that, we have Daryl and Tara kind of instigating people to get the garbage truck through the wall at the sanctuary because they don't have the patience to wait it out.
Right.
It's that trying to control the outer situation when what you need to control is your own emotional state.
Yeah. Man, I was thinking about that. I mean, because that's where I'm literally right there too, and in the rewatch, and I was like, y'all messed it all up.
Right? It's so aggravating.
I was like, dang it. They got out. Now everybody else is all jacked up and forget it. And
Rosita being like, maybe you guys just had to do the thing to figure it out.
Right.
Like of all the people, she was so gung-ho about going into the sanctuary right off the bat. And then after losing Sasha, which I think it really surprised her that she felt that way, was like, oh, that was not the best decision I could have made.
Yeah,
I'm going to rethink this. Maybe waiting is a better idea.
Right. I think she had to go through it to understand it, and then trying to tell Tara and Daryl to just chill.
But knowing that, if I had to go through it to learn it, maybe you have to go through it to learn it.
Right.
But I think that's part of the Chariot too, is the movement of it. You're not just sitting there statically thinking about your situation and how you're going to handle it. You're in motion, and you have to kind of course correct as you go.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know, what was I thinking about? Yeah, that's true. Because the Chariot is very much like go. I was thinking about when they were chasing Rick and Daryl were chasing that Savior's car, that chase scene, and it really, there's nothing significant other than it's very much just go, and like what you were saying, them having a course correct to get the guy to stop the truck or whatever it is.
And Daryl kind of like crashes or falls off at one point, and Rick kind of glances back, but is like, I can only control my own vehicle, my own direction, and just has to trust that Daryl will catch up. And he does.
And he does, yeah, which is actually what allows him to then make that kill shot. Like you said, like Rick moves over to the side.
But it requires like keeping your eyes on your own page.
Yeah. Oh, and then of course, speaking of Daryl, his vehicle is an iconic, you know, piece of equipment on the show. Piece of equipment. What am I saying? But yeah, him and his bike, man, that thing's been there since the beginning. And I mean, whether he changes it out or not, it's just he always has a bike.
And it's one that he works on himself. This is not like, oh, I found this brand new bike. This is like, I built this thing with my own two hands.
It's definitely part of his character.
Much his vehicle. He gets really upset when Dwight steals that thing.
Oh yeah, I would too.
And the vest. What a dick.
And the crossbow. Listen, you know, and then it's, you know, behind the scenes or whatever. It's just kind of funny because Dwight stealing that stuff in the show is the show course correcting where it came from, because all those attributes are Dwight's attributes. There's no Daryl in the comic book.
Yeah. So
really, who stole whose stuff? You know what I mean?
You're not even real.
So there's that in terms of the show course correcting these two characters with these two kind of on opposite sides with similar attributions. Yep. But when you watch the show, yeah, you're still like, Dwight, you're a dick. Why? So speaking of vehicles, at this point, like, okay, I always think about it like it's season 8. So is it that 8 years have gone by? And I don't think that that's right. In this show, it's not.
No. Let's see, because Judith is like, what, 3 or 4?
She's still,
She's still a toddler.
It's still, okay, that's still 4 or 5 years, though. The reason why I even brought it up was because I always was interested in, like, how is it that everybody has gas still?
Yeah.
And so I was trying to do some Google research, you know, and from what I read is that conventional gas is good sitting in a car anywhere between 3 months to 3 years. One thing said up to 6 years, but I think it depends like on the quality of the gas, and whether it's just like conventional or diesel and stuff like this. So I'm just like, okay, so we're 5 years into the apocalypse and we can still siphon gas and get these cars and trucks and everything moving? ?
Yeah.
Unless they found drums that were properly stored somewhere.
I mean, we see them carrying like a gas cannon hose. So it's like, you're definitely still siphoning.
I mean, I guess if you're in that situation, you're still going to try to use it anyways.
Yeah.
But
it's there. May as well give it a shot.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a weird, like, one-off, like, thing in my own brain. Like, kind of, is that true? Sure. Is this true? I don't know if this is.
Well, and then as we get later on and they start converting cars into wagons that are drawn by horses.
Yeah, they do at least acknowledge that that's not the situation forever. So, yeah. I'm glad about that. Because we don't have a sense of time in the show. We just know that it keeps moving forward.
Yeah.
Like you said, I think all you have to base it on is like how old the kid is.
Yeah.
Or how old Judith is, you know. So I have like a scene that always reminded me of the Chariot Card, which is Michonne's entrance scene.
Yeah.
And I think about her being introduced. You know, she has the two walkers that are essentially her brother and her husband from the previous life. At that point, she'd been on the road by herself for a really long time. beforehand. I don't know how to explain it. It's just for the scene itself, it's very evocative of kind of like the Chariot Card, because she's just has the two things, the two walkers, and at that point she's kind of world weary, you know. So she has her armor up, and yeah, she lets Andrea in, but like at that point we don't really know her as a character, and so she just seems very, very tough and isolated. But nevertheless, she traveled a long way by herself, working in between with a physical representation, but I'm sure an emotional weight of balancing, you know, what she do next and all that stuff. So,
and like finding her direction.
Yeah, because she's kind of just wandering out there, just surviving. No clear purpose at that point.
When she and Andrea team up, they're still just on the road going. They don't know where they're going yet.
Almost like still struggling with the past, right?
They both have a lot of stuff to work through.
Yeah, definitely.
I could argue Gabriel.
Okay.
He's got reconciling the guilt of what he has done in the past, locking his congregation out of the church, with helping to keep this new community, the Team Rick, wanting to be a part of that community, but also to figure out where they're going, what their deal is. And kind of sensing his way through that in a very like Cancerian, emotion-based way.
Yeah.
And balancing his actions with that, his moral sense, like what seems right to me in this situation, and again, course correcting. He has a lot of missteps. Could go in a better direction.
Yeah, because okay. So could an argument be made that Gabriel, for a while, he kind of is like in an escapism kind of mind frame?
Yeah.
And eventually he does course correct, like you said, but in that kind of Cancerian emotion based way, it's just he doesn't want to see the reality. It's there, it's in front of him.
It's like he's armored himself against reality. Like his
yes.
He wants to believe that he can be this like moral guide, but it's like you have to reconcile the fact that you've made not so moral decisions, and that you are human, these people are human.
Yeah, like for some reason I'm thinking about this one scene with Gabriel where he's outside by himself, and there's a zombie on the road, and it's probably the first time we see him deal with a zombie, and he has to then kill that zombie. You know what I mean? I think he uses a rock up from the road that he finds in order to do that, and he just, when it's done, he just falls to his knees and he starts crying. And it's like, he knows what, like you said, what he did with his, locking his congregation out, which made them turn into walkers. But, and that emotional thing for him is that he's a priest, right? He, even though it's a walker, for him, it's still like killing a person. I think it's a reality that he kept himself locked in that church so he didn't have to try to really face it, which I would think would have a double weight, because those zombies would be the faces of your congregation. So, I'm trying to think if there's any other characters that have like a moment of escapism where, and it's not an escapism. Like, for him, it's a very conscious escapism. It's not that he's so shell-shocked.
He's literally like running away.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's a forward movement. Yeah, like a running away. Yeah. of the thing. Which Carol, I guess we could say she kind of did that too when she went to the kingdom and then moved into that little house. She didn't want to deal with the saviors. She didn't want to have to.
Yeah, she just kind of wanted it to go away. It's like, that's the best you could do is put yourself away. And she was like, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. It was a conscious decision to step away. But I think she just maybe more needed a breather, but it was still an escapism to not maybe as a high degree as Gabriel early on in his character arc.
Yeah, she at least has the windows rolled down.
Yeah, she good. That's pretty good. Shoot. Do we have anybody else who kind of? Now I'm trying to think about escapism in general and.
Eugene. When he goes to the sanctuary, he doesn't want to go to the sanctuary, but as soon as he's there, he's like, okay, I'll be a savior. And he really struggles with that moral choice of like, which side am I on? What do I believe in? Who do I side with?
Yeah,
he talks about it being about surviving, and it's like, but what's the point of surviving if there isn't something more? And he's just figuring that out, that he really does care.
Yeah, that's about the time. Yeah, no, Eugene is good because they're giving him pickles. He got video games at the sanctuary, and when
getting to have like little parties with Negan's wives.
Yeah, and when Sasha is basically begging him to help her, she's like, give me a knife, give me a piece of glass, it doesn't matter, give me something to help me. You could, I believe that's kind of the beginning of Eugene's having to face up to that kind of escapism. That's like the first step in a series of steps that gets him.
Well, and that one was so interesting because I definitely had the impression that Sasha was looking for something to kill Negan. And so when she gets these pills, it's like, okay, well, fuck, what do I do? How do I use this to still accomplish my goal? And sacrificing herself for that to become the weapon.
She turned herself into a weapon. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, seeing that decisiveness in Sasha kind of started Eugene on this path.
Yeah, where he has to figure out, like, okay, Eugene is a very mercurial character. We did discuss that before. And with that being said, it's that he plays both sides, not for malicious purposes, but for his own survival purposes, so he could just live, right? And like you said, Sasha making that one decision, now Eugene has to grapple with what side is he going to commit to. He can't keep playing it both ways, and he knows that that's upcoming. But for a long time, he was just satisfied just living in kind of this fantasy land,
and just letting others control his direction. Like, not making the decision. Like, you get brought to the sanctuary, you become a savior. That's it. And realizing that he has a choice.
Eugene for the win. That's the truth.
And Eugene's mullet.
That's the truth.
I think it's more and more epic as we go.
Yes, it does. Yeah, he really grows as a character up to this point, because I just finished watching the scene where Eugene walks in. Okay, so Gabriel's captured at this point. He's sick, and he's in a sanctuary. He's laying in the bed, and Eugene goes in there and he starts screaming at Gabriel. And
when he has that whole monologue.
He has a whole monologue. And the great thing about that is it's the first time where you really get like a real Eugene moment. What he's thinking, what he's feeling, what he's struggling with, what he's trying to come to terms with. And he's basically confessing that to our priest Gabriel here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what was funny about it was, as I'm just casually watching it, I'm like, the man is sick as a dog in the bed. Why are you screaming at him?
Yeah, he's probably like completely out of it. He's got a fever of like 104.
Right. That's how I was thinking about
when
this.
Gabriel looks around like, what? Who just said that?
Exactly. I started cracking up too. Because if it was me, I'd have been like, what is happening? Why are you yelling? Like, I wouldn't have retained anything that was coming at me at all. Yeah. That's good. Okay. Enough about escapism.
Carl.
Okay.
I mean, he's learning in terms of, especially in terms of like the developed ego, because he's a kid when we start off.
Sure.
So he's learning emotional regulation and expressing his feelings in a constructive way during the zombie apocalypse. Mm-hmm. Like, it's hard enough to be a teenager, and he's doing this in end of world times. So he's making much bigger decisions at a much younger age. Mm-hmm. And finding that that way to constructively use the quote unquote negative emotions, anger, grief, controlling the urge to get revenge, and learning lessons, and figuring out what his will is and how to direct it. Mm-hmm. And like his whole speech at the end when he's telling Rick, thank you for making me who I am, like for getting me here. And Rick is like, oh, I just didn't want you inside that sewer anymore. And he's like, no, like where I am as a person so that I can be who I am, helping him realize the path.
Right.
And he does have a lot of, we talked about the kid that he kills after Woodbury, as the kid is about to give him the gun and he shoots him, and Herschel sees it, and Herschel as this, very moral, ethical character, and goes straight to Rick and tells him what's going on. And that's when Rick decides to set aside his fighting nature and do the farmer thing for Carl.
Yep.
To like show the proper path.
Yeah. Carl, I'm not ready.
Carl. And then the fact that Carl, passes on the hat to Judith as he's dying, so that it's this, Rick helps you figure your shit out, and then you pass that energy and drive on to Judith, who absolutely picks up that mantle.
Yeah, she does.
And I mean, Judith too, honestly. For 8-10 years old, she is very sure of where she stands about things.
Yeah. She's sharp as a whip, man. Like,
and just like understanding and good. Like, she's the only one that talks to Negan when he's in prison. She like sits on the steps and has conversations with him.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Judith fits the Chariot card very, very well too. Because for her, it's her dad or her mom and Negan at that point are her two kind of bigger influences in terms of the lessons that she's retaining. Which are two very different pulls,
Yeah.
By the time that Judith becomes not a prop in the story, but a character in the story.
Yeah.
Because for a while,
when we get that big time jump.
Yeah.
I mean, for the longest time, she's just a little thing.
Yeah. Didn't she give Negan a compass, or he took it from her and he gave it back to her? Or I don't know. I think there was a compass there. No, I'm bringing up the compass because of the Chariot card, right? The direction and things. There's all these. We talked about the iconic. The iconic items of the
yeah.
show, and that compass becomes a weighted kind of iconic thing between Judith and Negan.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, while Judith is still young and she's, very much about saving people and all this kinds of things, she still treats Negan as a person because she didn't experience all those atrocities that he did beforehand. She's just heard the stories. And at the same time, Negan's character is starting to shift and become more nuanced and become more complex. And so the compass is very metaphorical for him figuring out what his opposing forces are and like what his direction is supposed to be at that point. Once he realized the sanctuary is gone, because I think his ego is still holding on to that. Oh man, if they're there, we're gonna come. I don't know what.
When they have Lucille, and he's like, I just want Lucille back, and it's like, no, that's never going to happen.
Right.
Like he has this idea that he can still regain that power if he can get a hold of those symbols. And it's like, those symbols don't mean anything in and of themselves.
Right.
It's what you do with them.
Right. And we don't even know how long really Negan was locked up for before he goes and attempts that journey.
Yeah.
To even still think about trying. The world moved on without him, and there was nothing for him to grab onto. So then at that point, like you said, course correct and figure out what the heck he's going to do now.
Well, and he's so influenced by both Carl and Judith. Like they are really the moral guides for him. And it's two people who are very young, but have a firm grasp on their values and aligning their actions with those values. And he doesn't have that. So that's something that he's learning from them.
Yeah.
That's helping him to course correct.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. I only have one last little tidbit that I thought might fit here.
Someone threw a microwave at me, so I'm just gonna say something my mom used to say and hope for the best here. Whatever you have of good, spend on the traveler. My mom said that helping the traveler, person without a home, that's everything. I'm sure you've seen things, been through things that you don't trust people. I get it. I get it. I don't either. I've been through things too. My mom, she also said that may my mercy prevail over my wrath.
Even if we were considering the Fool card as a, the beginning of the journey, and the Chariot as a recalibration of that journey, it's still...
Well, and Rick and Carl talk about that when Sadiq says, yes, I was a resident, and I'm a doctor.
Right.
And Rick is like, oh, so you knew that, Carl, when you saved him? And he was like, no, he just needed help.
Yeah.
And it's like when you are coming from a place, when your actions line up with your values, things move smoothly. Things progress in the way that they're supposed to. You're going in the right direction.
All right. I think I'm good.
Yeah.
All right.
That was everything I had for the Chariot.
All right, cool. So yeah, same here. And for you lovely listeners, the question to consider this week is, well, the questions, there's a couple. What is your intention for the future, and how will you manifest it? Is something keeping you distracted? How can you recommit to your goal? And what can you do to reestablish control and or balance?
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. journal it, whatever, just something to consider. This card has a more undercurrent of an energy that is very personal. So I don't really expect anybody to put all their business out there like that. So, and then of course, if there's any other insights that you have in terms of the Chariot card and the Walking Dead, and you want to share that feedback with us, please feel free to do so. Don't forget about that voicemail that I said we have on tarotnerds.com. I'd love to hear your lovely voices. Don't forget to subscribe so you know when we upload a new episode. We can be found on all your podcatchers. Additional information on this episode can be found on our website, tarotnerds.com, in case you want a quick reference to the topics discussed. Next episode,
you can also email us.
Oh, yes, at podcasttarotnerds@gmail.com. That will be in the podcast notes. Next week or next episode, we will be discussing strength, and we hope you found this insightful and fun. Thank you for listening to TV and Tarot Talk. No matter where you are, don't forget to take some time out of your week to chill, chat, and tarot.
And tarot.
I think.
What are we doing?
I don't know.
We're gonna nail that one time and then just throw it in.
Catch you on the next episode, everybody. Say bye, Meg.
Bye.
Peace, everyone.